Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, podcaster, poet, and freelance proofreader. This is the episode I had been waiting for, and it actually ended the way I'd expected episode 4 to end, with the very beginning of Aaron's attack. Counterattack, really. There's a track from the previous seasons called Humanity's Counterattack, something along those lines, and it really is a fitting phrase. I'm going to get into that a little later, though. I feel like there are some other things I want to get out of the way first, and then we'll get to the real meat of this episode. Aaron and Reiner and Little Falco. Let's talk about Tybur here. First of all, I'd kind of gotten a sense of what he intended to do with the whole stage and all, with what we had in last episode, yet I still found myself caught off guard by the extent of that production. He really is a dramatic son of a gun. But then, we clearly have someone on the scene who knows how to outdo him in that regard. I'm just gonna get a migraine from that boy. See, it's like folks have said, now you know why Levi is grumpy all the time. Between the Titans and the Brats, and now you got Aaron who just has to be both. Anyways, I was also definitely surprised by the substance of what Willy said. I'm still not sure I believe every single thing he said. He doesn't exactly scream trustworthiness for me, but he did do some of what I was anticipating in terms of revealing things to the dignitaries of the world's nations. The world's nations minus Paradis, that is. It's fine. You're about to get your freaking diplomatic exchange, and you've certainly got a dignitary or two there. More on that in a sec. So, the whole manufactured history thing was both a surprise and not. I've said repeatedly now that I figured we'd been getting partially accurate and partially inaccurate histories from both sides, but those revelations we were given here sort of carried the speech further in that direction than I'd anticipated. But then what a bizarre direction that ultimately went in. The crowd finds out that King Fritz withdrew rather than being defeated, and that his actions had basically been protecting their necks all this time, and that they had been free to do what they would all this time due to his actions. The leadership on Paradis chose pacifism and then forcibly made that the path of the remaining population and future rulers there. Arguably, the leadership chained and caged the people of Paradis more than the Titans themselves did. And it was taken even further. They even chose to accept death if that's what the world wished to mete out eventually. Apparently that day has come. But now the people of Paradis have begun discovering the truth, and we can't have that. And we certainly can't have the power of the founding or progenitor Titan possessed by someone who's both able and willing to fight back rather than accept slaughter and extinction. Someone who might actually protect his people rather than submit to annihilation. Someone like Eren Yeager. I feel like there was a certain sarcasm coming from Eren's tone as he commented that Willy was right, that he's a bad guy who might destroy the world. Because while Eren is pretty much the definition of a legitimate threat, and we're at the very beginning of seeing that play out now, it's also like, Siri, define irony. Or would hypocrisy be the more appropriate word selection here? The people of Paradis hadn't been in any position to go after Marley. They had no knowledge of its existence, and the power of their founding titans still would have been bound by the pacifism vow if they discovered it. But Marley wouldn't leave well enough alone. They wanted the natural resource of Paradis, and they also wanted control of the founding titan. And for what? So they could continue abusing the power of the titans themselves and subjugating other nations. It's like what was discussed in episode 4. They chose much the same warmongering path that the former Eldian kingdom apparently had. It reminds me of something from scripture about the rise and fall of nations, about how power is transferred from a nation to its successors. And then the test is how that successive nation will act with its power and authority. Well, we've seen the answer here. And the big point I'm coming to here is that, irony of ironies, it was the attack and infiltration against Paradis, carried out by Reiner's Marley and team, that led to the discovery of the truth and the so-called theft of the founding titan. It reminds me of how sometimes nations get mad when the ruler of another nation gets replaced by someone who's not going to be a puppet. I mean, the royal family was literally saying, it's okay if you kill us. It'll be our penance. I don't think I'm going to try to get into that whole question here, but the point is that the power and authority were being held by people who had abdicated the normal, basic role and responsibilities of leading a nation. Whether or not that was right of them What Marley has a problem with is that now the population is learning the truth after a memory wipe and a century of lies and imprisonment. And the founding's powers have been given to people who might have a more normal basic approach in terms of being willing to protect their people like you would normally expect of a ruler. And after all of Marley's aggression, they're angered and frightened, and yes, they probably should be frightened now that their victims might fight back. As it is, they're barely winning the wars now, and they're on an unsustainable path that has been turning the nations of the world against them. They've become the new Eldia, and they're about to suffer their own fall. And what's their solution? Yet another brilliant idea. Now, it's true that Grisha was already on the verge of revealing the truth to Eren right before the attack took place. And while I somehow hadn't considered this before, folks noted that Grisha was probably at about the end of his term due to the curse of Ymir. Eren was 10, plus factoring in the better part of a year for gestation. Grisha would have only had about a couple of years left at most before needing to pass on the powers. So who knows what might have happened if that were simply allowed to play out. Well, we at least probably would have had a less traumatized and vengeful Eren than our present-day one who's about to start bloodletting in the center of Marley. But while we can theorize about how that might have played out, what we did witness is that Marley's attack is what ultimately spurred Grisha to action and forced his hand. The attack, which resulted in his wife's death no less, spurred him to take the founding Titan, wipe out the official royals, and pass on both Titans to his son. If Marley had held off on his excesses, maybe things would have taken a less extreme course and things could have had a more positive outcome for all involved. But what we have instead is our current storyline. And I think what Eren was saying in his response to Willy, more by tone and attitude than by words, was the sheer irony and hypocrisy of how, after all of its aggressions towards other nations of the world, plus its specific aggression towards Paradis, not only did it have the havoc-wreaking 5-year covert operation, but it also then spent the next 4 freaking years sending a total of 32 goddarn scout ships to Paradis as well. After all of that, its grand solution here is to distract the other nations of the world from its own behavior by sticking them upon an, up until recently, captive population that thus far has just been defending itself against Marley's attacks rather than acting out more aggressively. And that's even though they would have been justified in doing so. But nah, pay no attention to the war we were just waging against y'all a day ago. Let's preemptively slaughter those evil, scary demons on Paradis because they might finally attack us all after we've been attacking them and treating the local Eldians horribly as well. Marley's absolutely scapegoating them right now, and the other nations are gobbling it up. I guess because Willy, the other drama king, is selling them on it. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the warfare behind the curtain. And once again, they're not even treating them as people. They're not talking about diplomacy, about trying to talk things over and address them as a sovereign nation, a grieved group of refugees, or anything else. And given the whole thing of withdrawing from the war and the circumstances that have played out since, they arguably shouldn't even be treated as some sort of rogue or criminal element. But even that would be better. Instead, they're just going to be destroyed. The slaves have figured out that they're slaves, and now they're going to be slaughtered like animals. I guess they really were just cattle all this time. And Marley's about to turn Paradis Island into more of an abattoir than ever. No wonder Eren's about to strike back. I'd expect the average citizen to be both supremely ticked off and terrified for the future of their people. A regular citizen, never mind one who's seen and personally experienced the horrors and anguish that Eren Yeager has as both a civilian and an elite soldier. And despite the grand history lesson, apparently no one's really learned or improved from it. Willy has decided that scapegoating a largely captive population and egging the rest of the world into a genocidal preemptive strike is just the path to global healing and peace. And of course, Marley's sneakily saving its own hide from the imminent impact of karma that was headed its way. But this reminds me of that line from Gunpowder and Lead. You wanted fire? Well, now you've got one. You ain't seen me crazy yet. Alright guys, thanks for listening to today, and I hope you've had a great time. I'm managing to sort my feelings out a little better now, so I'm definitely looking forward to the next podcast installment already. Gotta talk about our boy. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you get updates. And you can help make the podcast visible for new viewers by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, social media, etc. By the way, I have this fairly lengthy article I just wrote exploring the character of Eren Yeager from the previous seasons, and the somewhat unrecognized depth and value he already had then. I really hope you guys will enjoy that. Now be blessed, stay salty, and may we all learn from our history, both personally and globally.